Well, this next site, as if I were leading a tour at this site, would be Capernaum on the northern side of the Sea of Galilee. The name Capernaum, the site that we're at right now, comes from two Hebrew words, Kafar Nahum, which means the village of Nahum. It's simply one word in the Greek rendering, and we don't know for sure if the village of Nahum is the same prophet that we have an Old Testament book named after. But regardless, the city is a little over 2 miles southwest of where the Jordan River enters the Sea of Galilee. The site of Capernaum, the city, began in about the 2nd century BC, and it really flourished in the 1st century AD, but it really sort of dwindled slowly thereafter. Now, there are two most important buildings that you can find at the site of Capernaum that are mentioned in the Word of God. One of them is the house of St. Peter, and the other one is the synagogue. Now, Jesus made Capernaum his hometown, we know from Mark chapter 2 and verse 1. It says there, actually in Matthew 4, verse 13, a parallel reference, leaving Nazareth, Jesus went and lived in Capernaum. Peter, Andrew, and James were fishermen who were living in this village of Capernaum. Matthew, the tax collector, also lived in Capernaum as well, in Matthew chapter 9. Capernaum was one of 3 cities that Jesus denounced and pronounced woes upon because most of his miracles and signs were done at these cities, but yet they rejected him and refused to believe. Now, Capernaum spread along the lake of the Sea of Galilee. It was actually a customs station on the border between the territory of Herod Antipas and Philip the Tetrarch. It was situated right along the ancient international highway, so many travelers going from country and continent to continent even would travel right next to Capernaum. So, for a site for Jesus to make his miracles and ministry public, it would be a very strategic location. Now, excavations have taken place for many, many years, even beginning in the mid-1800s. Jesus moved his hometown from Nazareth to Capernaum, and we know that at Capernaum many, many miracles were done. And we could open our Bibles to Matthew 8, where Peter's mother-in-law was healed. We could go to Mark chapter 1, where a demon-possessed man was healed in the synagogue. We could go to Matthew 9, where 2 blind men were healed. We could go to a number of scriptures, and we would do that if we were at these sites. Now, the traditional house of Peter is known by many to be a very, very old tradition, which helps in ascertaining where and how valid this house of Peter really is. The tradition is very strong. It was a fisherman's house because of some inscriptions that were found on the wall. In fact, even from early church history times, that is known as the traditional house of Peter. Now, the synagogue is very impressive. What we find today is a white marble synagogue. It's built on top of a black basalt synagogue. The white synagogue that we enter into today is from the 3rd or 4th century AD, but it's built on top of the 1st century synagogue where Jesus taught many times, and no doubt John 6 is a very important sermon that was preached in this synagogue. And what we would do is we would go into the synagogue and read the full sermon in John chapter 6.